The year 2025 kicked off with a bang in Los Angeles, literally. But the party mood quickly turned into a scene from a disaster movie. On New Year's Eve, a fire decided to join the festivities near the Pacific Palisades. It was tiny, just 3 to 4 acres, a baby fire if you will. Firefighters suspected the fireworks were the culprits. Who knew they could be such party poopers? They managed to put out the blaze within hours. Crisis averted, right? Wrong. 6 days later, a new fire decided to crash the party. On January 7th, the Palisades Fire went wild, spreading across the dry hills. This was no ordinary fire, it was the fire's evil twin. Fueled by fierce winds, it grew faster than a viral meme. The flames raced through neighborhoods, leaving a trail of destruction. This firestorm was just one of many in a city that looked like it was auditioning for a disaster film. Los Angeles was under siege. And not the fun kind. 24 people lost their lives in the fiery chaos. A tragic end to the party. The cost of the destruction was staggering, estimated between $60 billion and $130 billion. Talk about an expensive party. The Palisades Fire was the worst of them all. The ultimate party crasher. The ferocity of the Palisades Fire shocked even seasoned firefighters. They probably thought, "Not again!" It seemed to explode from the earth itself like a bad sequel no one asked for. But was it a new fire, or a ghost of the one extinguished just days before? Spooky, right? Evidence suggests the latter. Firefighters' radio transmissions from January 7th point to a chilling possibility. They placed the start of the Palisades Fire near the location of the New Year's Eve blaze. Talk about a fiery celebration. The Washington Post conducted an independent investigation, because who doesn't love a good mystery? They analyzed photographs, videos, and satellite imagery. CSI, Wildfire Edition. Their findings matched the radio transmissions. The evidence was clear. The Palisades Fire began within the very scar tissue of the New Year's Eve fire, like a bad case of déjà vu. But how could a fire reignite after being extinguished? It's like the fire had a grudge. And with such devastating consequences, the plot thickens. The answers lay in the environment itself. Mother Nature sure has a sense of humor. Ah, the Santa Ana winds. Southern California's not-so-secret weapon of chaos. These winds are like nature's hairdryer, blasting hot, dry air down from the mountains. In January 2025, they were on a mission, gusting over 80 miles per hour, turning the region into a giant tinderbox just waiting for a spark. Fire scientists? Not surprised at all. They saw it coming. Michael Gallner from UC Berkeley said fires can smolder for days. Like that one friend who just won't leave the party. Especially in dry conditions, embers can hide in the ground, waiting for their moment to shine. Jacob Bendix from Syracuse University chimed in too. Wind can reignite even the tiniest ember, he said, like blowing on a birthday candle that just won't go out. It gives the fire the oxygen it needs to grow, like adding fuel to a gossip fire. The Santa Ana winds were like a bellows, breathing life into the sleepy embers of the New Year's Eve fire. The investigation into the Palisades Fire was just getting started, but the clues were piling up, and they pointed to a scary truth. This fire wasn't just a random event, it was a disaster just waiting to happen. As the flames of the Palisades Fire roared to life, residents braced themselves for the fight they knew was coming. They probably wished they had marshmallows. But something was different this time. No, it wasn't a surprise party. Help was slow to arrive. Maybe they stopped for coffee? The wail of sirens so familiar in Los Angeles seemed distant and muted. Like a bad cover band. The city's resources were stretched thin. Thinner than a Hollywood diet. Multiple fires raged across the region, overwhelming firefighters. It was like a really bad game of whack-a-mole. Radio transmissions painted a picture of chaos and confusion. Like trying to order at a drive-thru with a broken speaker. Firefighters pleaded for backup, their voices strained with exhaustion. They sounded like they needed a nap. The high winds, the very force that fueled the firestorm, hampered efforts to contain it. Mother Nature was not playing nice. Helicopters, usually a lifeline in such situations, were grounded. They were having a staycation. The wind was too strong, the risk to the pilots too great. Even they didn't want to mess with it. Residents watched in horror and disbelief as the flames consumed homes and businesses. It was like a bad disaster movie, but real. Where were the fire crews? Did they get lost? Where was the air support? Did they take a wrong turn at Albuquerque? They felt abandoned, betrayed by the very system that was supposed to protect them. It was like being stood up on a date. Welcome to the ruins and repercussions of the Palisades Fire, where the only thing hotter than the flames is the gossip. When the smoke cleared, it was like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie, minus the zombies. The Palisades Fire had a bigger appetite than a teenager at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Over 5,300 buildings were turned into crispy critters. Homes, businesses, memories, poof, gone like a magician's trick. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and, well, more smoke. The economic impact? Let's just say it was more staggering than your uncle at a New Year's Eve party. Businesses were toast and livelihoods were left in the ashes. The cost of rebuilding? Almost as incomprehensible as quantum physics. But the true cost? Priceless. Like those old credit card commercials. Families were left homeless, their lives flipped upside down like a bad reality TV show. The emotional toll was heavier than a sumo wrestler on a seesaw. Survivors struggled to cope with the trauma of losing everything, like a bad breakup but with more ash. The fire left a mark deeper than a tattoo, and the community was angrier than a cat in a bathtub. They wanted answers. Why was the fire allowed to reignite? Did someone forget to turn off the stove? Why was the response slower than a snail on a lazy Sunday? Were their lives deemed less important than other parts of the city? Ouch! The questions hung heavy in the smoke-filled air like a bad punchline at a comedy club. Seeking answers in the ashes, the ongoing investigation. The ashes were still smoldering as investigators descended upon the charred landscape like detectives in a noir film, minus the fedoras. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, or ATF, took the lead. Because who else would you call for a fire? Ghostbusters? Their mission? To determine the cause of the fire and identify any potential criminal negligence. No pressure, right? The investigation was complex and multifaceted, like a Rubik's Cube, but with more ash. ATF agents, along with fire investigators, meticulously combed through the debris. Think of it as an extreme version of hide-and-seek. They were looking for any clue that could shed light on the fire's origin and spread. Sherlock Holmes would be proud. Interviews were conducted with residents, firefighters, and officials. Everyone had a story, and some were even true. Every lead was pursued, every piece of evidence scrutinized. They left no stone unturned, literally. The investigators were determined to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Like finding out who ate the last cookie. The scope of the investigation extended beyond the immediate cause of the fire. They were on a mission, and nothing was off limits. It also encompassed the city's response, examining whether bureaucratic delays or resource mismanagement had contributed to the devastation. Spoiler alert, it probably did. The investigation was far from over, but one thing was clear: there would be accountability, and maybe a few more press conferences. Section 7. The weight of responsibility. Potential legal ramifications. As the investigation progressed, a sense of unease settled over the city. It was like waiting for a plot twist in a bad soap opera. The possibility of negligence, of human error playing a role in the disaster, hung heavy in the air. You could almost hear the dramatic music. Lawsuits were already being filed faster than you could say, objection. Residents who had lost everything were seeking compensation for their losses, and who could blame them? They wanted their slice of the legal pie. The city itself was facing scrutiny. It was like being in the hot seat on a game show, but with fewer prizes. Had they done enough to prevent the fire? Or were they just playing with matches? Had they responded quickly and effectively enough to contain it? Or were they just putting out fires with a garden hose? The accusations were flying and the city was forced to defend its actions. It was like a courtroom drama, but with more smoke. The potential legal ramifications were enormous. Think Godzilla-sized, but with more paperwork. If found negligent, the city could be held liable for billions of dollars in damages. That's a lot of zeros. Officials could face criminal charges. Orange might be the new black for some. The stakes were incredibly high. Higher than a cat in a tree. The legal battles were just beginning, but they promised to be long and arduous. Like a marathon, but with more objections. The outcome would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the city of Los Angeles, but for how wildfires were managed and prevented across the country. Talk about setting a precedent. The Palisades Fire was not just a tragedy, it was a wake-up call, and not the kind you can snooze through. Lessons learned or ignored, preventing future tragedies. The Palisades Fire was nature's way of saying, hey, remember me? It also showed us that our systems are about as sturdy as a house of cards in a windstorm. This disaster made us rethink our game plan for wildfires. Turns out showing up late to a fire is not a winning strategy. Who knew? And ignoring a small fire while celebrating with fireworks? Not the best combo. But the real kicker? Not adapting to our ever-changing climate. Climate change is turning up the heat, literally. Drier conditions, higher temps, and stronger winds are making the West a giant tinderbox. The Palisades Fire was a wake-up call, but also a sneak peek of future blockbusters. So, will we learn from this mess? Will we invest in some cool new firefighting gadgets? Will we make our neighborhoods less flammable? Will we finally take climate change seriously or keep pretending it's a myth? The answers will shape the future for many. Time to act is now, folks. Welcome to the final chapter. A city scarred, a future uncertain, the long road to recovery. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. The Palisades Fire left some serious scars. And no, we're not talking about the kind you can cover with a band-aid. Just look at those charred hillsides. It's like Mother Nature had a really bad hair day. And those empty lots? They used to be homes. Now they're just sad reminders of what once was. The emotional scars? Oh, they're there too, just hidden under layers of I'm fine and it could be worse. The trauma of that January day will stick around like a bad house guest. The road to recovery? It's going to be long and full of potholes. Rebuilding homes and businesses will take time, money, and probably a lot of coffee. Healing emotional wounds? That's the real challenge. Good luck with that. The community needs to come together like a big supportive group hug. They must find strength in their shared experience and maybe a few good jokes, and hope in the promise of a brighter future. Because hey, it can't get much worse, right? The future may seem uncertain, but one thing is for sure. The spirit of resilience burns bright in the hearts of those who call Los Angeles home. The Palisades Fire was a tragedy, but it didn't break the spirit of the people. Nope, not even close. They will rebuild, they will heal, and they will emerge from the ashes stronger than ever before. Like a phoenix, but with more sunscreen. The fire may have taken much, but it couldn't extinguish their hope.